Hello and welcome to the Final Whistle podcast. My name is Harry McBain, and joining myself and co-host Bobby Addison is a striker who's played for the mighty Nottingham Forest, Reading, and he is currently with Western Sydney Wanderers in Australia. It's Simon Cox. Thanks for joining us all the way from Australia. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Let's start off with this quite a simple one. What made you want to become a footballer?
It's pretty simple, really. I think it was just a lifelong dream. I think every young boy and every young girl at the minute who play sport at school and stuff like that wants to become a professional footballer, and I've just been lucky enough to fulfill my dream.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. And could you name us any idols that you had when you were growing up? Maybe footballs you took inspiration from?
Yeah, my footballing idol was Teddy Sheringham at the time.
Oh wow!
When I was growing up, just loved the way that he played the game. Played the game with his head more than he was a lot quicker in his head than he was on his feet, and just really liked the way that he played the game. So yeah, he was my footballing idol growing up.
Oh, great! It's very interesting. And during your time, obviously, you started in the Reading Academy. Were there any coaches there that maybe taught you some key lessons that you took that advice throughout your career? Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I had two really good coaches. Brendan Rodgers was one who was my first proper, what I would call mentor. Somebody who obviously has gone on to do really good things in the game and is doing really good stuff for Leicester at the minute. But yeah, he was a young coach at the time, and he sort of broke down the game fundamentally, made sure that everyone was tactically aware of what their jobs were, even at Reading in the academy. Made players understand their positioning, and not just your sole positioning. If that was a striker, it was you need to know the role of like your midfield players, your defenders, so that you were tactically aware. And then the second one was Eamon Dolan, who sadly is no longer with us. And he took over from Brendan and just created this incredible legacy that Reading's Academy has today. And they continue to produce young local players through the academy for the first team. So they were my two sort of mentors as a young age.
Yeah, and you made your senior debut. I think it was against Luton in 2005. What was it like playing your first ever senior professional game?
I ran around like a headless chicken. I didn't know what to do. I came on. I think I gave away about 4 or 5 fouls in the space of like 2 minutes or so. And listen. It was one of those things you always dream of, but it was one of those I just couldn't really. You can't really describe the feeling. It was just one that is a complete blur. But it just gives you that hunger, it gives you that taste of wanting more. And I was lucky enough after making that one, I made a couple more appearances in the cup, and it was one of those that you can't really describe, but ultimately it was a feeling of immense pride.
Yeah, and I'm sure throughout your career you've played in many great stadiums. Are there any venues that you've particularly enjoyed playing at that are really memorable for you?
I mean, I've been lucky enough to play, international football as well as at the top level in the Premier League. So you come up against the sort of top clubs, and it makes you go out to the City of Manchester Stadium, Old Trafford, Anfield, the Emirates,
Yeah.
all of the stadiums. But then you're lucky enough. I played a couple of friendlies for Ireland in New York. We played at MetLife Stadium, which is incredible stadium, and then we played at Yankee Stadium as well. So it's been some really nice iconic stadiums in there, but probably I haven't really got a favourite one, I don't think.
Yeah, it's probably hard to pick, isn't it? So maybe moving on a little bit, in your time at West Brom, you helped score to beat Man City in the League Cup, and obviously had a good squad. Who have you been maybe the toughest players or defenders you faced in your career?
Again, it's tough because, again, like I said earlier, you come up against some of the best in the world when you play international football, and especially in the Premier League, and you come up against the likes of Rio Ferdinand and John Terry and all of those players of that ilk. And so it's very hard to pick, but I always use Sergio Ramos as the one that I came up against a couple of times for Spain, and he was just different compared to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in 2012, you moved to Nottingham Forest, and just in that season had 3 different managers, obviously Sean O'Driscoll, Steve McLaren, and Billy Davies. What was that like, and how hard is it as a player to, develop and fit in when the manager's constantly changing?
Yeah, well, that doesn't help, and I think it was more, with the owner as well. We didn't really have the consistency.
Yeah.
There was a change in ownership from the guy that I signed for. Then all of a sudden he changed. I think it was his cousin that then took over. Fawaz took over. So yeah, that doesn't help. And but look, at the end of the day, we're professional. You have to get on with the job at hand, and you have to try your best for every manager that comes in, whether he picks you or he doesn't pick you. You have to try your best, and we tried our best. I think if I'm being really honest, I think we failed. We had a really good squad at that time. We finished that I think my first season we finished just outside the playoffs. We didn't make it on the last day because I think we drew with Leicester 2-2. So we needed a win to get into the playoffs, and then obviously playoffs is a bit of a lottery anyway. So, but that season I feel like we failed a little bit. We needed we had a bit of a sticky spell with the changeover of managers around just after Christmas time, when Sean O'Driscoll left, and then we never really got going until Billy Davies came in.
Yeah, and I was just going to put one in that I haven't written down. With when it comes to Billy Davies, he's obviously a big character that I'm sure many Forest fans will know. What was it like working under him, and obviously the way that he manages?
He was great. He was great for me. He was great for us. Yeah, a bit of a strange character, but somebody who players really love playing for. Gives you likes to have a laugh and a joke, but very, very serious as well. Tells you everything about the opposition, everything you need to know. Makes you aware of what your job is, and then there's no grey areas, and you have to go out and execute that game plan. But yeah, really good guy. But there's a little bit of a loose screw somewhere in there.
Yeah. And at Forest, you scored an excellent goal against the future England goalkeeper Jack Butland. Took the touch and then dinked it in. What was it like to score, that goal? And what have been your most memorable goals that you've scored throughout your career?
I'd say that one was probably the most memorable one. I think that's the one that people sort of affiliate myself with a lot more than any other goal. But I remember that I'd just come back off of international duty, and I came off injured. I came off with I rolled my ankle, so I was a bit touch and go for the game, but I really wanted to play. And because I didn't turn up for training until the Thursday, I was on the bench and I came on, and I could obviously talk you through the goal. It was one of those that you stretch and you hope that you're able to bring it down. And as it was, it just popped up nicely. And the fact that who it's against in goal, it makes it a little bit more sweeter. So that was always nice.
Yeah,
that's great there. And obviously you mentioned a little bit about international duty. Obviously you were called up for Ireland actually to play at Euro 2020. And what was it like receiving that call up? Is it a proud moment in your life?
Absolutely. It was something that I'd never really thought of that would come. I'll be honest. I think you try your hardest every day in every game to try and get that recognition, and then all of a sudden when it does come, when that call does come, and you get the opportunity to play at international level with what is meant to be the best selected 11 or 18 or 25 players in your country or eligible to play for your country, then it's a very proud moment, not just for me, but for my family as well.
Yeah, and in 2014, you rejoined Reading, obviously where you started your career. What made you want to return, and what was it like, obviously going back to where you started?
Well, I'll be honest, I never really expected to go back to Reading. Stuart Pearce was the manager at Forest at the time, and I remember we were playing a pre-season. We were about to play a pre-season game against West Brom at the City Ground, and he pulled me in and he said, "You're not going to be involved today in the pre-season game." And I was like, "Okay, I want you to be a part of the Michael Antonio deal, to go the swap deal from Sheffield Wednesday to Forest, and you go the other way." And I said, "No, I won't be a part of any swap deal. If I go anywhere, I want to go somewhere where a team wants me." And he said, "Okay." So I was on the phone to my agent, and then I got a chance to go back to Reading. So it was never really something that I thought would happen. But then when I got the chance to go back, it was because I never really sort of broke through when I made my debut, and I never really got all the way through to the first team and played regularly. It kind of felt like it was a new start for me anyway. And it was just nice to go back. And obviously you end up having loads of tickets for every game. Your family want to go. And it was just a really nice little return for me.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was.
Bobby, can I just put in another one before the next one is next question is at Reading you had there was quite a few other strikers that were really good. What's it like as a striker, and how important is it to have, competition to keep up maybe the pressure on yourself to get the goals?
Yeah, competition is something that creates good habits and makes sure that you stay on top of your game. But also the best thing is consistency. You're not going to get into good form if you're in the team one week and you're out the team the next, or you're in for 2 or 3 games and then you're out the next. So there needs to be consistency. You can't have 4 or 5 really good strikers and 3 of them are sat there on the bench, and all of a sudden if you don't score one game, you're out. You need to be able to rely on being picked for 4 or 5, 6 games, and then you can try and play your way into form. But we had a good team. Again, it was similar to Forest. We had a lot of change of managers again, and an ownership as well. So that sort of hindered the progression of what we had a really young team because they'd just been relegated from the Premier League, and they had some really big earners from Premier League wages. They need to get off the books, and it made that we had to play with a lot of a youth team, which gives people opportunities, which is great. Yeah. But ultimately, you judged on wins and 3 points, and throughout that sort of season, we struggled. We did okay, but we struggled, and then but we got to an FA Cup semi-final, so that was good. And it was just a nice, like I say, it was just a nice homecoming for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good experience. Obviously, you have to go through things like that as professionals. It's it grounds you sort of, and it helps you evolve. And so that competition, as you said, you want to be playing consistently, but then obviously you always have to have that sort of, that weight on your shoulders, letting you know that you've got to keep doing as best as you can, really, don't you?
Absolutely. It's that like I said, that competition, it breeds that you have that ability to, you have to produce your best, because that if you don't produce your best or close to your best on a regular basis, you're going to be sat down for 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is. But like I say, consistency in selection means that you're at least allowed to try and play yourself into form. And then once you do that, if you stay in the team, then great. And other people sit there and obviously ride the wave with you.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe moving on now, next in your career, you joined Southend United, and you played there for about 4 years, making 150 appearances. What was it like, your time in this club, and maybe like what made you stay for so long? Because obviously 4 years is quite a long time at a team.
Yeah, it was actually I think it's the longest I'd ever spent at a club. So, but it was great. I left Reading again. It was change of ownership and change of managers and stuff like that sort of made my decision, or they made it. They didn't want to renew my contract, which is fine. You have to accept that. And then I got a phone call from the manager at Southend at the time, Phil Brown, and he said, "Come down and have a chat." So I met him at a service station on the M25, had a coffee, and No, listen, he was great. Told me exactly where I'd stand and how he wanted to progress the club and move the club forward, and what the plans were for him, and where he saw the club as a whole. And we sort of made a plan of what we wanted to do this year, and we had some really good players. And then I got back to sort of free scoring goals and enjoying my football again. And we had some really good times there.
Yeah, and now in January 2020, you joined, as we said earlier, Australian A-League side Western Sydney Wanderers. But obviously, the big thing at the time, COVID. When you joined, interrupting the league and having a suspension of the season, what was it like not playing over the lockdown, and especially as you just joined, was it harder to fit into the squad as you might usually do?
Yeah, I joined in January, and then COVID hit sort of around March time. So I only really got, I think it was like 7 or 8 games in that first period, and started to really enjoy it, being out here, the sun, the lifestyle, just the whole nature of the country, and the games. The games are really competitive. It's very warm, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really good opportunity for me to come out and play some football. Obviously, as soon as COVID hit, that was it. The season was suspended, and I got to come back to the UK and spend time with my family and stuff. But then we had to try and figure out a way to resume the last sort of 7 games of the season that we had. So we all came together as a league, as different clubs, and we made sure that we got to a point where we were able to finish off the season. We didn't finish off very well at all, but it was about the sacrifice of coming back and finishing off the season.
Yeah. What work did you do as a club over the break? Was it over Zoom? Did you like sessions together?
No, not particularly. We obviously were group chats and everything else that the lads were in, and the fitness guys would say, look, we don't really know when we're going to start. So, and it's very rare that as a footballer you get to, because we didn't know when we were going to start. It was very rare that we got a chance to just down tools and literally relax for 2 or 3 weeks. So the manager at the time, he was very, very happy for us just to go spend time with your families, don't do any work, don't do anything. But if you know any footballers, that's very hard for people who play professional sport to sit on their hands and do nothing. Very agitated people. So I'd imagine that everyone was doing a little something. But then as soon as we found out that we were coming back and there was a date for us to play again, it was then stepped up, and there was a couple of Zoom chats, and then the fitness coach was sending out sessions for us to do on the treadmills and on the grass and stuff. So it was fine.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe move on a little bit. If we're correct in thinking, you've maybe started or done some of your coaching badges, and if you have, would you say maybe coaching, is your future plan when you eventually retire, if that day one day comes?
That day is getting closer, I think. Hopefully not one day soon, but yeah, absolutely. I'm just about to finish off my A license, so that'll be good. I'm pleased that I've gone down that route, and it's something that, as I touched on earlier, I had 2 really good mentors growing up, so I feel like whether it's in the youth teams or as a first team manager, I feel like that's something that I can add a lot of value to, and especially with like the experiences that I've had, obviously playing at good levels, and now obviously on the other side of the world, it's you can sort of offer that inspiration and that coaching to the younger generation, and hopefully bring through some good players.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, we normally ask guests this when they come on. If you could have a dinner party with 3 other footballers or managers, from past to present, which 3 would you want to experience it with?
God. They always say never meet your heroes, so I don't think I'll put Teddy Sheringham in there.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Just purely on that basis. You probably have to go the likes of. I would love to sort of sit down and have a chat with like the Maradonas of the world and coaches. No, I don't think I'd sit down with any coaches. I think they'd bore me a little bit. So
yeah, maybe.
You'd want some like say people like George Best as well, people that had a little bit about them in their day that both of them were big drinkers,
yeah,
both
definitely.
Bikers, and I'd imagine they had stories to tell. So it'd be nice to have a dinner party where they'd have good stories.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks, Simon, for coming on and sharing tales about your career with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get notified when new content comes out. That was The Final Whistle.